over clean them.
You don't use muriatic acid to clean them.
And that's why you don't brush your teeth too much.
You use...
Welcome to the Inyo Pools Podcast, your go-to source for everything pool equipment. Whether you're a seasoned pool professional, a DIY pool owner, or just diving into the world of pool maintenance, we've got you covered. In today's episode, we focus in on salt chlorine generators, the systems that promise softer water, easier maintenance, and fewer harsh chemicals. So without further ado, take it away, boys.
All right, welcome back to another Inyo Pools podcast. Today we're talking about salt chlorine generators. We're talking about how to size them, pros, cons, maintenance tips, and recommended systems. So, Matt, you want to take what are salt systems? How do they work?
Well, I'd really rather not, because you put me on the spot. Basically, a salt system is made of two different parts. You have the control, which is basically where the power comes in and out of. Then you have the salt cell, which is plumbed into the actual plumbing, and it has I can't remember if it's all titanium blades, but they have
It's titanium coated in uridium.
ruthenium.
Yep.
Ruthenium or iridium.
Heck of a name. And with those cells, those cells have those plates, and so as the water comes from the pool, goes through your pump, your filter, your heater and such, and then comes into the cell, the salt inside the water strikes those cells. And now what salt is made out of? Sodium chloride. You got the sodium side and then the chloride side, which is just I think it's it's like one atom of chlorine.
Yep.
So once that sodium chloride hits the cell, it's called electrolysis, not like for your hairy legs, but it breaks it apart. And so the sodium goes and does sodium stuff in your pool, and then the chlorine comes back to your pool and starts killing bacteria. Kind of goes Rambo 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And after it does its thing, it kind of recombines with the sodium. So you don't have to keep pouring salt in. The only time you really have to pour salt back into the pool is after you've done like a heavy backwash that drains a lot of the salt and stuff like that, or after like a heavy rain or something like that. So I think I answered that.
Yeah, no, I think you did a good job.
You did a great job.
All right, we're done.
Yep, I think that
Wraps it up.
wraps it up. Yep. Now, how would you? So basically, what you're saying is salt systems make chlorine.
It's a pure form of
Right.
chlorine. That's it. That's why they always say salt chlorine generators are a better form of chlorine. When you have a tablet, you have your liquid chlorine. It's a processed version or whatever. So it's just a bit harsher. It's a bit stronger. That's why you get that kind of fried feeling sometimes.
Well, yeah, it makes your skin itchy or dry versus non.
Your tablets have a lower pH, and your chlorine output of a salt is at a higher pH, so it's a little bit more comfortable to swim in.
Yep.
It's kind of like having a salt system on your house, and you feel that silky smoothness on your skin after taking a shower. Same concept, so it's a little bit cleaner way to produce chlorine.
Silky smooth salt.
That's why you're always adjusting your pH for the salt system.
So with salt systems, how do you recommend sizing those?
I personally, whenever I'd size them, you got your 20Ks, 30Ks, whatever. I always, because it's always good you can oversize them. You just don't want to undersize them. They don't last as long if you undersize them. So I always, here in Florida, we've always doubled the gallons. So if you had a 20,000 gallon pool, you're not going to buy a 25K salt system. You'd go to the next size up, which is 40K. That's going to create more longevity for the cell. That's how I personally always do it. If you're on the fence of a size, I mean, I guess up north, you could take a 25,000 gallon pool and put a 25,000 gallon salt system on there because you're not running the pool as much throughout the season, and your production doesn't have to be as high. Where down here in Florida, obviously, we're running it all year round, and you're using it.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always sized them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my pool's only 10,000 gallons, and I have a 40K on there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't produce too much. You just turn it down when the water temperature is cooler, and in the peak of the season when it's my pool's 88 degrees, 90 degrees, and then I turn it up.
Your salt cell, the way they grade them is they put more. I believe they put more ruthenium coating on the pleats inside. So that's how you get your 25K, 40K. It's just a stronger
And
cell.
an extra plate. I put extra plates in there. Yeah, I usually always go high myself just because of you don't want to run it high. Like you were saying, if you got a 20,000 gallon pool and you put a 25,000 gallon salt cell on it, technically it would work, but you're going to be running at an output of like 80 and higher, and you never want to go over 80 because you'll burn them up unless you do an occasional super chlorinate here and there, but you don't ever want to run it. So I always do that too. Always double it. Especially like smaller pools, like you were saying, if you got 10,000, you put like a 20 or 40 on there, you're only going to be running that thing at like 20, 30%. You're going to get everything you need. And it helps keeping the iridium from calcifying, which is a good thing.
I also like oversizing it just to have that buffer on the high end. So, because, I mean, let's be honest, something's going to happen to where your pump motor goes down, your filter's acting weird, or, something happens to where your pool chemistry goes out of whack and you can't run the filter as you want. And let's say you run behind in terms of actual chlorination. If you have a 20,000 gallon pool and you have a 25,000 gallon, cell rating, it's going to be able to put out enough chlorine to maybe do it, but it's going to take longer to kind of recover that chlorine output or that chlorine level. But if you have a 40K cell on there, you always have that extra boost when you need it. So, I can't remember what the actual number of pounds of
like
chlorine that's come out.
3.5 pounds.
Yeah. So you always have that, 100% out of a 20K cell is, I'm no mathematician, but it's about half as much a day as a 40K cell.
Yeah.
Just in case you ever have to go through a green pool, hopefully if you're doing if you have a salt pool, chances are you don't have to really fight with a green pool that much unless something really gets crazy or you're opening a pool or something like that. But I always like to have that top end buffer. It's, it's kind of like when you buy a truck, like when you looking for like a Ford F-150 and they're saying, oh, this can tow 5,000 pounds. It's like, oh, that's good to know. I mean, I'm not going to be towing anything anywhere near that, but just to have it, it's just nice to have. It's nice to know that you can have that ability just in case you ever have to recover something.
Yep.
All right. So what are some of the pros of using a salt system?
It's renewable. That's probably the best part. Like Matt alluded to in the beginning, salt's a renewable
I didn't
source.
allude, I intimated.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
But it's renewable. So the only time you're going to have to replenish salt is if you have a leak in your pool or you're taking water out, which I always tell people, anytime water leaves your pool and it's a salt pool, that's salt coming out. And I always tell people, if you have to drain your pool, don't drain from the main drain from the skimmer. So you're getting the top surface and you're not getting all that salt on the bottom. But that's the biggest pro is that it's renewable. You don't have to keep.
I think one of the big pros is it's more forgiving. In the aspect of with tablets, you forget your tablets for a week, your pool's turning green. It takes a lot of dilution to actually, if you have it in the right area that it's supposed to be in, it takes quite a bit of dilution to actually make it where it's going to stop creating chlorine for you. So as far as it not having to add algicides and stuff like that to bring your pool back, it's definitely more forgiving.
I kind of like the flexibility of it, just because with tablets you're adding chlorine, but you're also adding a bunch of stabilizer in there. And especially if someone's new, they don't realize that a stabilized tablets, stabilizer is just like getting pumped into your pool, and then that's something they have to fight, like chlorine lock or something down the line. I don't know how many times I've had to take phone calls with chats about someone who just got a new house or something, and they keep hearing about chlorine lock, and their pool is turning green, and they don't know what to do. we do have a blog article and a how-to guide about that.
That's always been a problem with tablets. Is a lot of people don't read the actual canister it comes in, and always look for the AC or the available chlorine, because the lower the available chlorine, the more stabilizer you're going to have in those tablets.
Yeah, and just the cost of tablets.
Yeah.
You know, to buy a bucket now of tablets is pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not having to buy tablets all the time.
Yeah, and it's just more, I guess more independence of the chemistry. Again, going back to the stabilizer, where, you know, you can always just jack up the chlorine and you don't have to buy shock. You can do a super chlorinate thing instead of having to throw in shock, which is just another thing, just another pain to kind of handle. And also, you know, it's not, probably takes a little bit of life out of everything it touches. Hopefully not you. But it's, you know, it's just nice to have, and the pure form of chlorine, again, it's just good for the swimmer. It's better for the swimming experience, and less likely that you're hopefully, you might not get that icky chlorine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but tablets are probably one of the most, one of the strongest chemicals that you put in your pool. So, So if you can change that and not have to add tablets, that's great. Many years ago, it wasn't cost efficient to put a salt system in. It was way too expensive. Now I wouldn't say you're gonna pay for the system 10 times over, but I would say it's an even trade. You're paying up front or you're paying down the line with tablets.
Right.
That's how I've always explained it.
You don't have to store it. You don't have to worry about like carrying it, going to buy it. You don't, you know, if you do have a pool person that comes in and dumps a bunch of chlorine or shock or something, you don't really need to have that person do that anymore. I mean, you can if you want to, but you know, it's just kind of frees up some space in the backyard, and I mean, it's also cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're going on vacation, for an extended vacation, 2 to 3 weeks, you know, if you're not there to put in tablets, you run out of chlorine after a week or so. So with this, you just set the output, and it's going to keep running. You know, unless something happens to the salt system.
As long as the system's running, it's creating chlorine. So,
like I will pet sit, but I will not chlorinate or sit.
Yes,
that's something I refuse to do.
And their salt systems are really, really good for people with skin conditions where they have like sensitive skin. Because we had customers come in and they have like his daughter had like a problem with it, so he put a salt system in, and now she could swim and have fun because it's not as harsh of a chemical as like say using tablets or liquid.
All around
tablets are the strongest, because some of them have the hypochlorite, some have
well, the trichlor is one. Like I said, I believe it's the most dangerous chemical you put in your pool.
Yeah, it's still class 5. That's the thing. It's still a class 5 oxidizer.
All right, so we covered the pros. Let's get to the cons, because people love to
nothing.
It's
all perfect. The grass is so green on this side, baby.
And that was people put them in. And I think that's the biggest con. Is they put them in and they think they don't have to do anything. That's it. Said I'm done. And they don't realize with them, you have to be proactive with them, because there's a lot of moving parts with a salt cell. And one of the big things is keeping them clean. And there's a lot of people that do not realize they have to keep them clean. And I was telling them, you know, even when you look in there, you should at least clean it twice a year. It has to be cleaned at least twice a year, whether you see anything or not. You should clean it.
Maintenance. The maintenance goes up with them, because you're either unscrewing the onions or you're doing the top of the Jandy version, the True Clear. You're using some acid to clean it. So whenever you have to do that, you're mixing water and acid. I think another con is stabilizer. You know, you're adding stabilizer a little bit more frequently to keep it in that range. But it's also a pro, because you're not adding too much like you would with tablets. So I think there's a give-take situation there. Chemistry is going to stay the same. I've heard people try to sell it on, hey, you're chemical free, you just use a salt system. No, that's not the case. You still use your alkalinity, your calcium, your
pH.
Yeah, your acid.
You're going to be monitoring your pH because it will shoot up.
Acid, you're going to use a lot more acid over the time because you're constantly having to bring that back into range. So.
Right. The chlorine that it's generating is naturally high in pH, so you're constantly having to add muriatic acid.
I think another big con is the fact that a lot of them are wired in or plumbed in with two big unions, and a lot of people don't realize you don't have to tighten those unions down, and they're very easy to crack. And once you crack one of those unions, a lot of times you're going to have to cut them out and then replumb new ones in.
I'd say another con is when you got to replace the cell on some of these systems.
Yeah.
You know, if your T-cell 15 goes out, it's $1,000 or more to replace that cell. So that's a big hit all at once.
Yeah. Upfront costs of a salt system are where they kind of get you, because whenever you have to replace anything or you're buying the system in itself, you're paying for it up front instead of, like I said, with the buckets of tablets, you buy them over, say your salt system lasts for 4 years. What's a bucket of tablets, if you use 2 buckets a year, cost you over that time? Do the math and kind of figure out. But I think it's an even trade until you have to buy that next cell, and then you have to restart that.
Yeah, because typically those cells are lasting 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
it could be longer if you oversize your system, or it could be less if you undersize it.
Yeah, they always tell you that they last 5,000 to 7,000, between 5,000 and 7,000 hours, something like that.
And I think you have to clean it every 500 hours at least. That's what the Alpharite.
I think it
will.
Tells you to.
No matter what happens. It
just
kinda,
when you get the inspect cell, like that's a lot of times there's nothing wrong with the cell. It's just 3
months.
A reminder to change your oil on your car.
And you look in it, look down it. If it has nothing on it, I just strap it back on there and go from there.
But if it hasn't been cleaned in a while, I would still just tell them.
I'm against that.
I mean,
I'm against that because if you clean a salt cell that has nothing on it, all you're doing is you're taking off some of that coating of the ruthenium. So if you over clean them,
you don't use muriatic acid to clean them,
and that's why you don't brush your teeth too much.
You use a citric based acid, which is way better for your cell than muriatic.
Acid magic?
So I've never heard of the citric based acid.
So citric based because the manufacturers want you to use muriatic acid because it will eat the ruthenium or the iridium that's coating those titanium plates, because it will eat them. But if you use a citric, it will not eat away ruthenium.
Yeah.
But
and it does, even if you don't see anything, it does tell you, regardless if you see anything, if you haven't cleaned it in a long time, it says you still should clean it twice a year, regardless.
Is the acid magic stuff? Is that the
Maybe
stuff
that's why
that
you
you
go
can
through a lot
make,
of it.
that you can use to clean?
No, I've never heard of the citrus.
Yeah, you can use that
acid thing.
Acid
so
magic.
That's new to me.
I'd say another con is that that the salt water is a little more corrosive. So if you had a steel ladder, or if you still had an old steel filter, something like that, it could eat away at that. And if you have natural
steel
skimmer basket that are out there, or if you have like natural stone, and it's porous, and kind of eat away at that. So there's a little bit of a drawback there.
Yeah, that's why it's always that you have to maintain that sweet spot where they tell you to keep it between 27 and 35 is the average on most of them. Some up to 4,000 parts per million, but you always want to keep it like 32 for that reason. You don't want to go too high, because too high the salt cell is shut off because the water becomes corrosive and it will start eating away that finish.
I guess you could get those. There are those low salt versions of, I'm not sure what's the range. Is it like 900 or something like that?
So yeah, there's quite a few salt systems out there that have like a crazy range, like 1,700 parts to 35 or 4,000 parts per million. So there are a few salt systems out there that have that range, and I think they're becoming more and more common because you get a lot of people that go off the box, and if your cell's dirty or your cell's going bad, and it's telling you, hey, your salt's at 2,700, but your salt really on a TDS meter or a salt pen is saying 3,400, and you go and add 4 bags of salt. Now you're at 4,000 and your salt system's turning off because it's saying too much salt. I've ran into that problem so many times with people, and it's like, well, be sure, come get your go get your water tested, or buy some type of testing yourself at your house so you can see, because sometimes that box is going to lie to you. And number one, you're spending more money on salt whenever you add it. But number two, you have to subtract water and add water. You're diluting all your other chemicals as well. Yep. So it's going to cost you money at that point.
Yeah. If you oversalt, you have to physically take it out. And like I said, most salt cells will tell you what you read on the box is not, or is going to be accurate to what you tested on an actual TDS meter. They're usually 300 to 500 parts per million difference. So if it's reading this, but you're within that 5, then you're good. And I always tell people, always go by what your cell says. And if you can, recalibrate. That's a big thing. If you go to a pool store and they tell you your salt's at 3,400, don't add, recalibrate your salt cell to read 34, and then you should be good.
Well, that parlays into like knowing if your cell is bad or if it needs to be cleaned. That's a good way to tell as well.
Yep.
Is if you're reading 3,400 on your salt testing equipment, and then your box is reading 2,700, you have a problem there. It's either your cell's starting to get older and go bad. If your cell is 5 years old, then you got to start thinking, okay, maybe it's going bad. Mm-hmm. If it's a brand new cell, then you got to think, okay, maybe it's dirty and I need to open it up and check it out. So that's a good way to kind of diagnose the situation as well. Then you recalibrate it and do all that fun stuff. So in that case, just checking things, making sure, comparing side by side.
What was that bucket trick Hayward did? I can't remember. I think I heard about it at a convention or something a few years back. Sorry, I'm old. It was like if you put maybe it was a Pentair, where if you put the cell into a bucket of water that has from your pool that has salt in it, and if you see bubbling, that means the cell is still working, or it's still able to create it. I can't remember the full thing, so don't do that if you're not a professional. But I always wanted to try that. But
if you have a Hayward and you ever go and get it tested at a warranty station, a lot of time they have a testing cell to compare your cell to, and you can see at the top of your cell whenever you turn it on to start testing, because it's a 60-second timer that it counts down to. Up at the top, it actually bubbles and fizzles and crackles. So it's comparing this cell to this cell, and kind of the same concept of that bucket test you're talking about.
Yeah, one of the cons too is people understanding the output. The percentage isn't the percentage of how much chlorine is being generated. It's time. How much of the time that thing is generating. Because people will always say, hey, my system's not working. It's not on. It's not generating. It's like, what do you got set on? 20? Okay, well, it's probably not in the clean. It's not in the cycle right now for it to come on. It's only coming on 20% of the time. And like, oh, I thought it was I just turned down the percentage. You turn down percentage of time, not percentage of what's being made.
All right, so we've gone over pros and cons. What about some maintenance tips for salt systems?
Whenever you add salt to your pool, turn your salt cell off.
And brush it.
Yes. You're going to turn the salt cell off or unplug it if you are not sure how to turn it off. And then give it off for about 24 hours and then plug it back in. And then that way it allows the salt to dilute into the water more.
I think we've covered a couple of the maintenance things with the cleaning.
I have a question about the 24-hour thing. Would it make sense to, if you have a dummy cell or if you have a length of pipe, to maybe just remove the cell? And then put in the dummy thing so you can still run the pump and everything. And
I think you're just doing extra work, because whenever you have it off,
plug it because you don't want power going to it. Well, it's not.
Whenever you have it off, it's not reading a salt reading, and it's not spiking the amperage on your board. What you're trying to do is not
turn off the salt system altogether, just so you just give it the time for the salt to dissolve into solution, and then you're still able to run your pump and filter to, I guess you can throw some shock in there to kind of supplement Since there's
I think you're only doing it for 24 hours, so I don't think it's necessary to shock the pool unless you're doing regular maintenance or something. But 24 hours isn't a lot of time because you're turning it off the next day, and then maybe you shock it then. That way you can up the chlorine depending on where you're at too. I mean, here in Florida, 24 hours and Florida heat can be pretty devastating to a pool.
But you say 24 hours isn't a long time.
Well,
let the jackpot.
yeah. But I think a lot of it, like, and being in the business, as soon as you add it, you just tell them once your system shuts off for the night, you can go out and. Yep. So when it comes on the next morning, it's on and ready to go.
Yeah, because the biggest thing is you don't want that
initial.
It's like your clean. If you have your cleaner in there and you have it on and it runs over a big pile of salt, it's gonna jolt the amperage in your salt system box, and it potentially can burn out a board or something.
Exactly.
You know,
1 minute it's reading 2,400, next thing, whoop, 7,000.
Well, luckily aqua rights don't do that, so you don't have to worry about that.
You brought up a good point about the dummy cells, because there are that triggered a couple of maintenance things as far as like for the winter. Mm-hmm. Taking your if you do close down your pool, taking the salt cell off and putting the dummy cell in there. Mm-hmm. Or if you're doing like a stain treatment and you're dropping your pH really low or it's super acidic, you want to take your salt cell out.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Or if if your pool turns green, like green, and salt cell's not going to generate enough at one time to start killing, and you have to super shock with other chemicals, then you want to have all that chlorine going through it.
I want to throw it out there. Please. With the super chlorinate, I've never advised that because all it's doing is wearing life on your salt system. Exactly. You can do that with bags of shock, liquid chlorine, anything else, and it's cheaper than running your salt cell into the dirt.
Yeah,
it's kind of the concept of your salt cell's meant to maintain. It's not meant to take your pool from green to blue in 24 hours. It's not a wand, So anytime you're trying to clean up a pool, I would suggest doing an actual treatment with chlorine products.
Yeah. Liquid's probably the best because it's quick. It's already dilute. It's quicker versus granular.
I've had pretty good luck.
And like I said, that's why I tell people never run it over 80. Some people, you could say that, but they're still going to super chlorinate. And then I say, if you're going to do it because it's your system, don't run it super chlorinate for like days, maybe for a little bit and turn off. And that's what I was getting at. That people say, well, why don't I just super chlorinate? Because every so often you're going to have to shock your pool. Most people don't realize with a salt system, at full max, it's generate probably about 3 pounds. But if you run it at 20% all the time, algae being a living thing will get acclimated to it. It will become immune to it. So you need that spike in the chlorine to break up that monotony. So that's why it's nice to throw in like a jug of chlorine every couple of months just to break it up. And then people are like, why don't I super chlorinate? And like we've said before, and most of us have seen them. I've seen them in his store.
You want to shock and oxidize the water from time to time to begin with. You want to kill all the chloramines or burn up all the used up chlorine in your pool.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing that, then you're just getting buildups of that, and that's you get chlorine demands and stuff like that at that point.
Monochlorides and stuff like that and then nitrates and all that stuff build up in your pool.
So we talked about cleaning the cell from time to time, but what about in between that, trying to keep those cell blades clean? Like, first of all, you want to keep your pH level lower, so you want to be testing that each week and adjusting the pH down. And then there's
calcium. I would say
scale defender.
Scaled. Yeah. Dan brought this up the other day. Using some type of metal control or something to keep that calcium from attaching to things. That keep your calcium levels at, like, they have recommended ranges. Keep it at the lower range.
Yeah. So I think what was it? 200 to 240.
Yeah.
2 to 240.
That's what. Yeah. As far as like if you have a salt system, typically if you have a salt system or I always recommend it on like dark bottom pools. Keeping. 1,000 times have told people, hey, keep your calcium in that 2 to 220 range. I know you'll have to add it more often, but you run the risk of discoloring your pool or creating scale in your pool whenever it's at those higher ranges.
Yeah, because people don't realize that when you see that scaling, that's the water pulling the calcium out of your finish. And that's when you start having finish. You see like cracks because it's pulling all that out of your finish. And even if you don't see, that's why I would say scale defender. If you throw in scale defender in your water, even if you don't have scaling, it will protect your cell as it's going through from scaling up. And that's a good preventative maintenance for that.
All right. What about, what systems do you recommend? And which ones do you not recommend? I know we've all got our.
So I think the big three aren't bad. I've always went towards the Hayward, because you have your sizes. You got you have like 3 different sizes. The box on the top on the wall gives you a readout display of of how much salt is in there. Even though I say don't trust that, but it gives you a general idea. Yeah. And I guess that's where I've always installed those. I've installed the other brands as well, but that's the one I installed.
And along those lines, the Pure Line Crystal Pure is basically, like a Hayward system.
Yeah. The Hayward, the Pure Line's a good one. If the Hayward's probably the most well-known universal. Everybody knows the Aquarite was Aquarite or the Aquatrol, all that. They know that one. I like the Aquarite because I do like that it has all that information. I like the True Clear for simplicity because I think it's probably the simplest one to clean.
Is that by Jandy or?
It's by Jandy.
Yeah.
The True Clear one's probably the simplest one. I'm not a big fan of Pentair's because I'm not a fan of the all-in-one because any one of those little parts that break in there. Plus, it's not
this flow switch is attached to this.
Exactly. Plus, on the top, it doesn't really give you an accurate reading. What's in there it has like a little green dot that'll go from 0, 3,000, and so you don't know where you sit in there. And I think when it comes to that, I think people should know that when salt systems read the salt content, it's not accurate because it's an algorithm that the electricity is going through and it's reading based on an algorithm. That's why it's not very accurate, but it's somewhat.
Yeah, it's not an instant salt testing like a TDS meter would be, or a salt pen that you buy.
And that would be probably most accurate.
And Tyler, what are your thoughts on the Jandy True Clear?
I do not like the Jandy True Clear whatsoever. No, it's not that I don't like it. I think the concept of it being able to twist lock off is a great concept. I just don't think they last as long as your other salt systems like the Hayward and Pentair's and even the bigger size of the Jandy. I was never a fan of that one or the IE. I've seen them or EI.
You remember EI?
I've never installed it, so I never really cared about it. But I noticed that they're more or less on smaller pools. Whenever like new pool builds, a lot of pools here in Florida don't get past 10,000 gallons anymore. So they put those cells on there, and I've always thought of them as small pool salt systems. Other than that, I'm just not a big fan of them. I've always liked the Hayward concept, even though it's on unions. If you're smart enough to know anything that has an O-ring on it, you don't crank down a union, then you won't break the union. So you got to be careful. Use strap wrenches, use all the right tools, and you're good. Now, the only other salt system that I would say is comparable, I don't like the aspect of the flow switch on the Pentair version, and I don't like it that it has the green buttons where it's like, I think it's comparable to the Hayward as far as longevity goes.
Yeah, they seem to be pretty durable. Yeah, we don't hear many complaints about the IntelliChlor.
Yeah, the ice, and I like the fact that they had the IC40 and they came out with the IC30. And if you buy the IC30 cell because you had the IC40, it comes with a little stem that you can hook it up. You don't have to completely cut it out and replumb that area. You can actually just hook it up to a stem piece to make it retrofit to the IC40 size.
So, because I knew someone who had a Aquarite system that they had for at least 5 years, and they were replacing board after board, and it was just kind of and replacing the cells and everything, and it just was becoming so much where and I suggested, let's switch over to the IntelliChlor because, it's a different design, but they don't generally have the board issues. And I mean, it's been a while. I haven't heard from him, but you know, I think it's worked out pretty well for them. But going back to the Pure line, you know, when I started here, the Pure line, or not the Pure line, the Hayward Aquarite, it was to use a fancy term, ubiquitous. It was everywhere. Like the T-Cell 15, those things were flying off the shelves, and you know, their design is okay. You know, they're easy to install. The control is somewhat easy to read, but I mean, honestly, maybe it's just the fact that we've sold so many, but over the time, you know, you start to see kind of a trend of, you know, boards going out, calibration issues and things like that. Like, I think the design is good, but because of inflation, because everything has gotten crazy expensive, no matter if you're buying a pump, a filter. I remember when single cartridge systems cost $180. I miss those days. But getting back to salt, when it came to Aquarite, like, I mean, they're good systems, but when you consider down the line, a salt cell is going to be $1,200 probably in 3 to 5 years when you actually do need to replace it. When you have to go and get a replacement board, that's another $400. There's 2 boards in there, and the display board's a cheap one. It's going to be like $150, $200. But that's why, you know, I like the Pure line, because it's a similar design. It's a design that can replace the Hayward Aquarite. The cell drops right in. The box is about the same shape, so you don't have to do too much adjustment there. And you know, they similar design and all that stuff, but also the parts are less expensive, because, you know, no matter how good of a salt system is, you're going to have to replace the parts. I mean, one of the downsides of the IntelliChlor, like you were talking about, is, you know, there's 2 things on that system. You have the power source, or the power supply, which is basically just a big old tan brick with a transformer on it. And then you have the cell, which is just everything. And you have the flow switch, you have the controls, you have the alerts and all that bric-a-brac and
all that stuff.
Just like, so if something goes bad on there or gets damaged or something like that, like it feels like it's a full suite replacement. And those cells are more expensive, but I like their design, but you know, they do have a downside of just being all in one. It's modular, but that's a big module to replace. So, you know, when it came to, like, if I was going to suggest somebody get a system, if you're thinking about, you know, long term having to replace the parts, and just the cost of that and the availability of parts, I'd probably go with the Pure line over the Hayward, because of the pricing of the Hayward. Both are good designs. They're very similar designs. I think Pure line even makes replacement boards for the Aquarite, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, they're very similar systems, but I feel like the Pure line is good. There's also other systems like the J&D AquaPure. I think they still make those. I think that might just be a trade grade, which is all right. The one design that I was always super intrigued by, but just seemed like a real pain in the neck, was the autopilot.
Oh, the autopilot
with the manifold, like the loop manifold, like. And they had the tri-sensor, they had the cell, and then they had the little spring valve thing on the bottom. Like,
cool concept.
I mean, it's cool concept. It's supposed to use less salt.
Yeah, it's actually a really good system. They're just, you pay for it.
Yeah. It has many moving parts to it.
I used to call it the Cadillac of systems, because, you know, it's, you know, it looks cool. It's a bunch of different parts. You know, you look at the brochure. What
is it? AquaCal that makes that system?
It's the same company.
Same company. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think Yeah, I can't remember if they were Florida or not, but yeah, the autopilot is good. But again, that's another thing when it comes to parts. It's hard to find autopilot parts
and
just
price.
Like laying around.
Price wise goes there.
The accessibility of parts. You know, you got to.
That's another thing I think of too. Yeah. So Hayward parts are everywhere. Pentair parts are everywhere.
That's why Hayward's so popular, because parts are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not a fan.
Because you need them.
I'm not a fan of the box. I'm not a fan of the box that they put all the stuff in. I think they should do a better job with Hayward with
sealing it.
Because that's the big thing. People don't realize your board's going to go because it's sitting out in the elements.
Yeah, it's water, heat,
everything, and it's not really sealed good to where it's protecting that. And people don't realize, well, my board went out. Well, you got to remember too, especially here in Florida, humidity, the heat, then you got a lot of rain, and if that little seal, black seal around the door goes, all that's going right in there. So I think Hayward really, and I think they sold big because Hayward was the first one that actually made affordable salt cells.
No, I agree.
That's why you see a lot of those aquarites, because they were the most affordable one at the time.
Well, the design is very good.
The design is really good, just the box. I just think they should do a better job sealing that box.
If you compare it to the Unichlor, you remember in that bathtub thing that came out, like those kitchen things? Like, I didn't make those.
You're dumping salt.
People love the Unichlors. People that had them for 15, 20 years, they didn't want to let those go.
They were the Rayvac of
yes.
They were.
I think with salt systems, a lot of people, whenever they have a salt system and they're going to replace it, they tend to replace it with the same thing they have. That's the cool thing about the Pure line is if you have a Hayward and you wanted to try something new at a better intro price, it's same thing. You don't have to do replumbing. You can remount a new box in the same spot that I think that box might be a little bit different of a shape.
A little wider,
But mounting a box to the side of the wall isn't hard at all. So there's a little less that goes into the install with it if you're a DIY or whatnot.
If you're cool, like all
me.
DIYers are cool. Everyone knows that.
Well, I mean, if we didn't mention everything salt related, please leave a comment, let us know, give us feedback, and don't hesitate to reach out to Inyo if you have any questions. If we didn't cover anything, I know Matt would love to answer the phone and help you out with any questions.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you're going to go out and if you don't own a salt cell but you're looking for a salt cell, I would do a little research in them to see what not just about the salt cell, but what it takes to maintain and what it takes to actually own and operate one.
Make an educated decision.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. You definitely got to.
One way to make an educated decision is to come to Inyo's blog and look at the ultimate guide on how to transfer or convert your pool to salt water. So it's a very, very thorough guide. I think we even have a couple of different videos. I mean, again, our how-to guide section when it comes to videos, articles, and again, just I guess regular how-to guides. I guess articles and how-to guides are two different things. I can't remember, but yeah.
But yeah, and if you call us or shoot us an email, we've got several texts, two of which are here on the podcast with us, and we've got several experienced customer service reps that can answer your questions.
And me, I'm around.
Yep.
I ain't going to talk to you.
Barely.
But I'm here by request from the staff. That's why I'm not here very often. But yeah, it's salt systems are a sweet deal.
And they're definitely nice to have. As long as you maintain them, they're great. It's great to have, and the water feels better.
And everybody can have one. And they can't look at it as, hey, I can't do this. My pool won't do this. No, you can have a salt system.
You can have a salt system.
No matter what size it is, no matter where you're at, you can put a salt system.
Especially now that, and even people who have above ground pools now, they're actually making salt cells for above ground pools.
Well, if you liked what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe or share this, however you're consuming this podcast out there. And I don't know, until the next time, it's the Inyo Pools Podcast.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Inyo Pools Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. For more pool tips and resources, visit INYOPools.com, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Links for both are in the episode description. We'll see you next time.